budgeting and finances has become very complex. Most people have multiple accounts. Most people have multiple subscriptions. You have a lot of money going in and out, and that becomes very stressful and complex to know what you're able to spend. Lumi Money does that for you and makes it very easy to know and have that guidance. It's basically the Robin and your Batman.
Hello, Ricardo.
Hello.
Welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm doing good. I am doing good. It's another hot day in Florida. That's what I have to say.
I wanted to talk to you and bring you to the podcast because you have such an amazing tool to help more Latinas, women of color, people of color really embrace why having access to tools, specifically those that come from underrepresented founders, is so important. So you are new to the Say Hola Wealth Podcast. So tell us a little bit about who you are and what was your relationship with money growing up.
Sure. So my name is Ricardo Kendrick. I am the co-founder and product lead for Lumi Money. In terms of my relationship to money, growing up, I remember my parents specifically saying, hey, make sure that you do save money. Make sure that you don't spend all of your money. But they didn't necessarily give me the tools to do that. I remember saving up for my first PlayStation 2, and I had a savings account. I remember saving up with that. And I do remember specifically my mom said, you're about to take $300 that you saved up for and spend it all on a video game console. She's like, are you sure you want to do that? And I was like, absolutely. I've worked hard for this. I've did my chores. I've gotten birthday money. I want to do it. Therefore, that I would say that was my relationship with money is don't spend everything, save something. Clearly, I didn't learn because I spent everything I saved. And as I got older, I really started to understand by just firsthand experience how little I was in terms of confidence in order to manage my money well, which then led me down a whole rabbit hole and issues with money and things like that into my 20s.
Wow, what a powerful story. Now, I met you through LinkedIn and another connection, and I became fascinated with how you launch an app to help more people really embrace the identity of what it takes to not just manage money, pay off debt, but also take full control and ownership of your money. So what inspired you to launch Lumi Money?
Absolutely. So what inspired me was actually in my 20s, probably around 2014, 2015. At that point in time, I was managing money, newly married at that time. And it was just something was not clicking. I don't know if you have ever felt this where you are checking your budget, checking your account, and something's not adding up. Like you almost feel like Scooby-Doo where you're like clueless at that point in time. And you're like, wait a minute, we just had money a few weeks ago. We should have enough for these bills, or we should have enough for groceries, all of these different things. And then as I was doing some math, trying to write things out, I started to see we're spending faster than our next paycheck. And therefore the month end and the beginning of the month became very difficult at times. So fast forward, a colleague of mine told me about budget, a way he does budgeting. And I also have experience with some budgeting. Most of us will know budgets are like top down, like list everything out, list all of your income, list all of your expenses, and then whatever that deficit is or that surplus is, then you work with that. For some reason, my mind did not compute that. And it's not that it didn't understand if I am spending more or spending less. I think for me, my mind was looking for something about how can I know what I need to spend right now? And I could not for the life of me figure that out. And he just told me about the way he does budgeting, where it almost looks like a timeline. And I understood that for some reason. I was like, at first I was fascinated. I was like, wait a minute, there's other ways to do budgets? When he showed it to me, my eyes kind of lit up. And that right there led me down the path, a 10-year plus journey where I refined that Excel spreadsheet year after year after year because I became very motivated because I wanted to stay in the black. I didn't want to end each month or begin each month or periods in a month going negative. And it became something for me where I was like, in order to do that, I need to know what I can spend today. I can't look back in the past and look at my bank account. I need to know what is going on today and then the next day, at least for a few days, so I can guide my family, so that we can have better conversations. Because one of the other things that would come up is in conversations, there would be discussions about, well, there's this much money in the bank account. We just got paid. And then the discussions will ultimately lead to, no, a portion of that has to go to these things coming up. And therefore, this is how much we have to spend today, or this is how much we have to spend tomorrow. And I wanted to be able to have a tool that was proactive, help me be proactive versus reactive. And then come 2023 is when I started talking with a friend who was a developer, and I was getting so tired of manually updating things on this app, always trying to stay ahead of the curve. And as a result, he said, oh, you could easily make this into an app. And something just went off. Like, for some reason, everything that I had been wanting, when he said that, I thought to myself, wow, this is actually a real possibility. And I think that struck a chord for me because I've always wanted to build something. I didn't know what to build, or I had built things that failed. I really, at that point time, was thinking, wow, I can build something. And I also realized that it was something that was truly solving an issue for me. At that point in time, I wasn't thinking about, could it solve an issue for other people? And of course that happened, but I was solving a real problem. And I can build something where it could take all of the effort out that I was currently doing on a week basis just to stay ahead of myself financially, which that is one of the issues why a lot of people don't want to budget or manage their money, because it takes so much time. And that is how Lumi Money became to be, from an Excel spreadsheet over the past 10 years, constantly editing it, constantly working on it, to then finally one of my good friends saying, hey, you can make this into an app. And from there, that's how Lumi Money came to be.
I love that story so much, because you're like, hey, there's a gap and I want to understand it. When I started my journey, I knew that I needed to do these really old ways of budgeting just to change my behavior. In fact, maybe you don't know this about me, but I use the envelope method to physically help me not just understand money, but to help me understand the psychological aspect of money. Like, what happens when you put it in the envelope? Like, how do I feel? And I think for me, that practice wasn't so much about understanding how to spend. It's more of, I want to understand what my body's telling me when I'm into the envelopes. And I tried different methods that eventually I was like, I'm exhausted when I budget. So how can I make this work for me in a way that is efficient, that I don't spend 30 minutes? I have listeners that still do their budget on a piece of paper and a notebook and pencil and paper. And I think that technology has changed the opportunity for us to really trust that our money can work for us, but also that our money can be managed with ease. Now, I have another question for you.
Yes.
How long did it took you until you had the final product? Because sometimes we see all these apps on the App Store and we're like, oh, they just come and go, but there's a lot of stories behind it. So can you walk us through the process of
course,
when your friend says yes to you finally launching the app?
Absolutely. So that was around 2023. And around 2023, when he told me that idea, then I didn't really know what to do. I thought that, okay, maybe I just go on Google and figure things out. But I had another friend who was a mobile app developer, and he went to school for it. So I reached out to him and we started meeting up, and he told me, basically, before you do any type of development, you need to go out and do some real world research, because yes, you may have a problem, you may know how to solve it. But if the outside world does not validate that, or at least they don't have to necessarily tell you that, great, here's my app, is more so the problem that the app is trying to solve. You can do either just surveys, or you can actually do real world interviews. I chose to do real world interviews and also some surveys, so I can get an idea of the pain points and what people are currently doing. So for the next 2 years, from 2023 to 2025 in May, I really did a lot of research. Since he's a mobile app developer, then there's something called like UX, UI design and things like that. But before that, you turn that research into like user studies. And it's a simple process of there's this person, they want to do this job, and this app or this app fulfills that job, and here's the result of it. So it's very simple, where it's like person, what their job, what they want to do, and then the app does a certain job for this effect. And I then created user studies. So research, user studies, I had to map everything out. And it was, to me, it was so enjoyable because he was really trying to help me not be someone who just went and built the app, but really understood the audience, really understood the problem, made sure that there was a problem that multiple people share, because he didn't want me to waste money ultimately. So from all of that, skip ahead to 2 years later, then I was introduced to, and of course, AI is already here, but a tool called Replit. And that was it's also a code builder. Between my developer friend and a few others, I was able to use Replit to help build what it is today. That started in about May or June of 2025. And went all the way until just, I wouldn't say January of this year. So yeah, it took me at least about 7-8 months to build and then also launch in the App Store, which was finished around February. So in total, about 10 months. So 2023 to now, easily about 2.5 years that it took for me to first understand the customer and make sure that experience of the problem is shared and there's pain points that are real, to then getting the different tools and connections needed to actually map it out, build it, and then also get it approved by Apple, which is another part of the process as well, too.
I love that. I wanted you to share your journey as a founder, because sometimes underrepresented communities don't tend to support the things that we produce as much as other apps. And I wanted to highlight that it takes time for any founder to build, but then also to gain the trust and actually invite people to invest. So for the people that you already have, the consumers and customers that you have that decided to invest in Lumi Money, how are they benefited from using the app?
I really appreciate you trying to walk through the process, because you're absolutely right. It does take time. And I don't think after I launched it, which was around February, I didn't start getting users until about April. And then from there, then it's a big pipeline. From there, certain amount of people become subscribers as well. So it has been a definitely a long process. And how does it benefit them? Is very simply that when someone signs up for Lumi Money, they'll go through an onboarding experience, and it's going to ask a few questions such as, when do you get paid? And we call that the pay cadence. For some people, that's weekly, bi-weekly, bi-monthly, monthly, variable. Like it's as clear cut as that. We do see that most people do get paid on a weekly basis, that users that use Lumi Money. Then it's going to reinforce the problem, saying, hey, your bank balance is not the thing that you should be focusing on or using as a guide to understand what you're able to spend. Lumi Money helps you know what you're able to spend. That is kind of reinforced in the onboarding. Then you're asked to connect your bank account. It then does an analysis and reveals your safe to spend number for the very first time. That is so exciting to me and others who have seen it, because it almost feels like a relief. Like, okay,
I love that.
I can spend something. And truthfully, I may not be able to spend anything today, because everyone has a different amount of money in their bank account, different bills, all those different things that affects what you're able to spend. So therefore, we try to accommodate for all those things. We try to make it less disheartening and less of a sad feeling if, for instance, Lumi Money shows you that you may not have any money to spend for this day. That doesn't mean that you won't have money to spend tomorrow or the next day, but it just means that it's trying to do its job, which is ultimately let you know, hey, I shouldn't spend today. For some people, that can be $20, $50 or more, but that's the goal and the experience. And as a result, we are seeing that within the first 2 weeks, that people are starting to adhere to this safe to spend number, this concept that we've been helping people with. And as a result, the great thing about it, when you start to adhere to a number that says, today, Lucy, your number may be $50. Tomorrow, it may be $75. To the next day after, because bills came out and other things, it may be $45. It is very dynamic and very proactive, because that happens in real life. The disconnect that I have seen in my life is that I would spend and not always be aware of all the things in the back that are coming to hit my bank account. And therefore, yes, I know that certain monies are coming out, but I may not always know when those are coming out. I may know the time of around, or it comes out on the 15th. Yes, that's true. But there's also other things that are happening. So therefore, it helps me to know this number that I'm giving to users through Lumi Money, and even using myself because I am my own customer, I can be sure and safe. I mean, I could feel certain that this number accounts for all those things. And that's how Lumi Money helps people, is that it helps them understand what they can spend confidently without dipping into the money that is needed for their bills that are coming up in the future that are already accounted for. And that's the beauty about it. And then as a result, people can then start to really think about, in that moment, should I spend this money? When you're at the grocery store, when you're at going shopping, you can quickly check Lumi Money in a few seconds. It will tell you this is how much you can spend. And now you have to do the part that Lumi Money can't do, which is control your money. You have to then say, let me not spend as much, or let me put this purchase off until tomorrow or the next day. And I think that is a beautiful reality that feels very liberating. Like my stress levels have went down with Lumi Money, and my confidence to manage my money easily have actually went up.
I love that. And I will also say that it sounds to me that is more of the awareness rather than the controlling of you don't spend versus yes, you spend. I think it's more of the awareness of this is how much you have. And as someone who used to struggle with impulsive spending, one of the things that I like to do whenever I feel like spending money, for example, today, I have so many guests on the podcast, and I used to believe that I only spend money when I was sad, right? Like they call it retail therapy. But for me, whenever I'm extra happy, I want to spend money. Like I'm just like, I'm going to go to the store right after the podcast. And so I always like to ask myself, like, how am I feeling today? Right? Like, am I shopping because I actually need, for example, food? I don't have any food, or am I just spending money because I'm bored? And for me personally, a lot of the times when I spend, it's because I'm very happy or I'm bored. And so when I'm very happy and I have so much energy, rather than running to the store, now I just go for a run or a workout. And then after that, I'm like, I'm fine. I didn't need that shirt today, right? But I love the intentionality that you essentially created through the app that you developed. And I want to talk about investing in your app, because you mentioned two things. One is the customer or the user has to give access to essentially their bank account. And in our community, and probably I will assume in your community, there's this mistrust of the financial institutions. So how do you address, or how do you educate people on, hey, you're connecting your bank accounts, but we don't have access to everything?
Absolutely. I really do love that. So for us, how do we address is in our onboarding, we do let them know this is what we would say read only. So first we give them the context. Hey, if someone has used like Cash App or some of these other financial apps, connecting your bank account is the same way. Then on top of that, we do use Plaid to be able to connect our bank account, which is a lot of people are familiar with Plaid as a bank connector. That is another thing we do. But we also do let people know this is read only, which means that we have no control to go in, make transfers, do any of that. And quite frankly, that's not necessarily allowed for us with Plaid, with how we use it. I can't speak on any other apps, but for us, we only need your transactional data. That's all we need, because your transactional data is basically all the transactions you have in your bank account tells a story. And so therefore we need the transactions to understand your financial story or someone else's financial story in the past, because what we do with that is then create a forward-looking forecast. So we basically take all those transactions. We understand around plus or minus a few days when things come out. We can then project out, and then we're able to understand from there how much you're able to spend, because it's basically about cash flow. It's your flow of your money from the past, the present, and the future. And we simply just need the bank account connected, and it's very easy to do so. Is read only, which means we can't change anything in your account, move money, spend money. We cannot do any of that. So I think that right there, and also based on how people have actually adopted it and connected their bank accounts, I would say that from the point of sign up, about 80% of the people who install the app and sign up, they are actually connecting their bank accounts. So that actually gives me some comfort that they do trust that we're being authentic and true.
Yeah.
And when they see the experience, then they can easily know that, oh, okay, they can't do anything to my account, but simply give me a number that's a safe to spend number.
Yes. And I love how you touch on personally what I'm hearing from you. This Lumi Money app is really more of a cash flow projection.
Yes.
Rather than let me help you micromanage your money.
Absolutely. Lumi Money is an overspending mitigation platform that is basically taking financial complexity and translating financial complexity, real-time guidance between paychecks. And what that simply means is, you just said it, we both feel it. Budgeting and finances has become very complex. There's a lot, most people have multiple accounts, most people have multiple subscriptions. You have a lot of money going in and out, and that becomes very stressful and complex to know what you're able to spend. Lumi Money does that for you and makes it very easy to know and have that guidance. It's basically the Robin and you're Batman in that sense, or you're the superhero or a super lady, and it is your sidekick. As a result, there are other things that we do want to bring into Lumi Money to not only help people not just know what they're able to spend, but when you're able to know that, we're also then able to help you understand what money can you put away and what money can you move to other things like saving up for an emergency fund or investing or saving up for a big purchase, then impulse buying, things like that. Those are little practical things that we are excited to be releasing in the future. So it starts with knowing what you're able to spend, because if you can control, we can help people control what they spend on a daily basis or a weekly basis. We can then move them to a better place. And that's why for us, financial stability and building that foundation is so important for us, because there's plenty of apps out there that focus on prospering financially and all these other, let's build wealth, let's do that. But I even struggled when I was in my 20s and even in my 30s. I've struggled with saying, hey, I want to save money, I want to invest. But then when something financial difficulty hits my life, I now have to tap into those investments and those savings that I've been trying to put away for the past few months or year. And then now my heart hurts, because it's like, when am I ever going to build? But it's because my foundation was not properly established. And that's what Lumi Money is to help people do.
And I 100% agree with you. I think like financial life and generational wealth and all of the financial moves that we want to make do require to have a very strong foundation, because as underrepresented communities, we already have so many gaps and, hurdles that we have to jump. So when the foundation isn't strong, I feel like we're just fooling ourselves. So Lumi Money is here to solve the problem. So for those of you that are interested in downloading the app and supporting Ricardo, go ahead and check the link in the show notes. I'm going to put a link to Lumi Money. I really loved everything that you are doing. So in addition to inviting people to use the app, how else can we support you?
Luzy, this has been a blessing. Thank you so much. I'm happy and honored that you would have me on here. And for anyone, thank you very much for supporting us. And how you can do so is, of course, downloading it as well too and giving it a try, but then also telling others, because I can tell so many people I do use it. It is something that solved my problem. And I do see that problem is out there for a lot of people, but building trust and building a name for yourself does take time. And therefore, you having me on and you encouraging your listeners to check it out, them encouraging their friends and family to check it out. That's the way that Lumi Money is able to build that traction and ultimately be able to help many individuals and families. So that's how everyone can help. And then, of course, when you do experience Lumi Money for yourself, feel free to leave a review.
Well, thank you so much for coming to the show. I'm really honored to have the opportunity to get to know you, as well as learning about Lumi Money and the impact that it's creating in your community. And I cannot wait to see the impact that it creates in my community and all of the futuras cash libres that listen to the show. Before I let you go, I want to ask you, what is your definition of wealth?
My definition of wealth is, for me, being able to have enough for my friends and family. My friends and family matter so much to me. I would do anything for them. So for me, wealth isn't about having so many material things. It's about having enough money and material means to be able to ultimately bless others and help them have a solid foundation. And that foundation allows us to be able to be there for one another through the joy, through the tears, enjoy good food together. I love to cook. So you can add that in there, having
I
people
love
over.
food.
And absolutely, I love food and I love cooking different. Like a lot of my friends are multi-ethnic, from Hispanic, Haitian to whatever, German, like white, whatever. But for me, I love having wealth. For me is having a variety of relationships and just enjoy life together and weather storms together and see our children grow up.
I thank you so much for coming to the show. It has been an honor. And for those of you that love this episode, make sure you give him a follow and don't forget to review the podcast. And I will see you next week.